What's up guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm Printed Paper, and in this video I'll be talking about the history of the Minecraft combat snapshots. But quickly, before we get into the video, I want to try an experiment. So you know how all those YouTubers say to smash that like button and everything? Well, I'm curious to see if that actually works. So hit the like button and I'll see if the audience engagement goes up or anything. Okay, back to the video. To start this tale, we have to go back to before the combat tests, to a divided world. When Mojang came out with the 1.9 update for Java Edition, a lot of people didn't like it. People complained that it was too slow and tedious and unintuitive compared to 1.8 in Bedrock Edition. So, most competitive Minecrafters stayed with version 1.8. This is what the world of competitive Minecraft was mostly like up until June 26, 2019. Jeb, the lead developer of Mojang, posted something on the r/Minecraft subreddit titled, "A Custom Java Edition Snapshot to Test New Combat Mechanics." In it, he explains that they are aware of the controversy between 1.8 PvP and 1.9 PvP and are attempting to address it. He then has a list of changes and a download to a jar file. Items in the list include overall much faster attacks. Attacks only happen when the cooldown is over, even if you spam click. You can hold to attack, weapons of different reach, and at 200% cooldown you can perform special attacks like crits, sweeping attacks, and knockback, all of which have longer reach. Shields have no warm-up delay and activate when sneaking, and a target's invulnerability timer will be shorter if you have a quick weapon. Every one of these things are huge changes to the PvP meta, and the community and developers know this. Most of the community is excited and supportive of these new experimental snapshots and provide lots of useful feedback. 19 days later, on August 15th, he releases a new version with changes based off of the community's feedback. In this second version, they decreased the sword's attack speed from 3, what it was in CTS 1, to 2.5. A lot of bugs were also fixed and some minor changes were made. About 2.5 months later, on November 1st, a third one is released, this time with many more changes. The sword attack speed was reverted to 3, holding to attack has been nerfed and is now 20% slower than spamming or timing, knockback resistance isn't RNG based anymore, the shield's protective arc has been reduced from 180 degrees to 100, and an entire new enchantment was added. This enchantment was called Chopping and was exclusive to axes. Chopping had a maximum level of 3 levels and increased damage by 1 and increased the time a shield was stunned for by 0.5 seconds per level. This time, lots of people had feedback, and there was lots of useful discussion between developers and players, and soon enough, on November 29th, a fourth one was released. Combat Snapshot 4 made tons of changes, mostly just from the community's suggestions. The cooldown no longer reset when you switched items in your hotbar, special attacks no longer needed the 200% charge, charge hits got 1 whole block more reach, a bunch of Trident parity changes to Bedrock, and snowballs stacked to 64 and have a 4-tick cooldown. The next snapshot wouldn't come until the new year, but on January 17th, 2020, version 5 was released. In this snapshot, he decided to tackle the saturation and regeneration system and armor balancing. To solve armor balancing, he decided to make all weapons weaker in order to make armor matter more. The saturation system is a bit more complicated. I won't get into the details of how it worked in previous versions because it is extremely complicated, but it worked a lot simpler in these combat snapshots. Basically, the effects of saturation was removed. As I understand it, the saturation value is kind of just a second hunger bar that depletes instead of hunger until it runs out. I'm working on a video that goes into more detail about this, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that. Other than that, the eating speed was decreased to 40 ticks instead of 32 ticks. Natural healing is 1 HP every 3 seconds instead of 4, and works down to 6 hunger points instead of 18. Your ability to sprint is unaffected by your hunger level, meaning that you can sprint until you die of starving. Along with that, a complicated mechanic was added called Coyote Time that I won't get into, but basically it made it easier to hit small targets like bats or baby zombies. After this, the community provided their feedback as usual, but another combat snapshot didn't come until August 7th, almost half a year later. In the last combat snapshot, the community made it very clear that the Coyote Time wasn't very good. Instead, it was replaced with the system that basically increased any small mob's hitbox to just under a block to make them easier to hit. He also made it that if you miss an attack, the delay is only 4 ticks instead of having to wait the full cooldown. That was pretty well received, but these next changes not so much. The base reach was increased to 3 from 2.5, so all weapons had 0.5 blocks more of reach. He also removed the extra reach you get from 200% charged attacks, which means that all weapons had longer reach, and it was very hard to counter someone who was just using a trident. Along with that, changes were made to shields so that they didn't block all damage, only up to 2.5 hearts. Bows also now decreased in accuracy the longer you held it. There was also a bunch of changes to the hunger system. The eating time was reverted to 32 ticks, natural healing speed was increased even more to 2 seconds instead of 4, sprinting needs 6 hunger points again, and if you get damaged by an entity while eating or drinking, it stops you. Also, the chopping enchantment was renamed to cleaving. That version 6 was probably the most controversial combat snapshot yet. Jeb received about 3,000 comments suggesting changes. Version 7C, which came out about a week later on August 17th, mostly reverted these changes to what it was in version 5, with some other changes, along with some bug fixes. Shields now provide some knockback resistance and block all explosion damage. According to some members of the community, this was actually the best combat snapshot, as it had most of the good things from Combat Snapshot 5 and all of the good things from version 6. Then, a couple of days later, on August 21st, and depending on if you're seeing this on the day it's released or not, exactly 1 year and 1 day ago, the 8th and most recent Combat Snapshot was released. With this version, Jeb was pretty satisfied with the major changes, and focused more on balancing. He added back in the bow wobble effect and eating interruption. He also balanced strength and healing potions, tipped arrows, cleaving, and made it so you can drink faster than you can eat. A bit later, an edit was made to the post that had version 8C. This version just made some minor changes to shields and made banner shields block more damage, which is just for testing, it's not actually going to be in the final version. And after that, nothing. There was basically no news for the combat snapshots for more than a year, which brings us till today. The combat snapshots are still pretty popular, there are plenty of regular players on Combat Reforged and Eternal PvP, IP's in the description, and people are still discussing changes that might be made. So comment down below when you think the next combat snapshot will come out, and what do you think they'll add? I'm excited to see your responses. Well, that'll about do it for this video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and share and save, and yes, I'm actually pre-recording this about a week in advance, so there's a chance a new snapshot came out before this video comes out, making this video outdated. So, yeah. Bye!